Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, I'm talking about some artists and some albums. You might be surprised, I have my record collection. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So the first album has been one of my guilty pleasure albums since I was a little kid. I absolutely love this album. I love the movie also. I know that it got a lot of really mixed reviews over the years, especially when it first came out. But that is a jazz singer by Neil Diamond. So Neil Diamond was the first artist I ever saw in concert. I was like, I don't know, maybe 9, maybe 10 years old. My parents were going to go see Neil Diamond. I don't know if they just didn't have a babysitter or what, but they took me and my brother along with them. I'm pretty sure I slept through at least half the concert, but I do remember a couple of the big tracks, of course, America, that I'm pretty sure he closed with America that night. Great laser light show. He put on a really great performance. I still listen to this album pretty regularly. I still watch the movie. I actually have the movie still on DVD somewhere in my house, but I have a digital copy that I watch every once in a while. It's just it brings up a lot of really great memories of the 80s for me. So I've never been a big fan of country music, but there's very few exceptions to that rule. Of course, like Johnny Cash, some of those older classic country musicians. Chris Stapleton is a newer one that I really enjoy. And then there's Garth Brooks. So, and it really shouldn't be a surprise this is in my record collection, because at one point, I think Amazon was basically giving these box sets away. I think I paid like 10 or 11 bucks for 3 copies of this. I know that there's one person in the Vinyl Den Facebook group that has a bunch of copies of this box set, and he used them to stack on top of warped records to flatten them out. So when Garth Brooks released this box set, I really thought it was going to be the start of this reissue campaign, where he was finally going to go through and reissue all of his albums on vinyl. And this is kind of it. They stopped at this box set. So you've got No Fences in here, The Chase, In Pieces, Fresh Horses, and Triple Live are the albums in this box set. But there's so many other great albums across his career, including the Chris Gaines album, which I know he got a lot of grief for, but I really enjoy that album. I'd love to see them finish out the rest of his discography and release those albums also. So the next album might be the most overpressed album ever in the history of music. And that is 30 by Adele. So this is an album that, I guess kind of going back, I really enjoyed her first 2 albums. They're 19 and 21 were her first 2 albums. They're both incredible albums. And then 25 was a little bit of a letdown. I thought she was going to bounce back with 30. 30 is an album that, if you go into any Walmart or Target, there's like boxes of these things laying around because they pressed so many of them. They thought it was going to be a huge selling album. I mean, it did sell really well. It charted really well. But I think, kind of comparing this to her other albums, it's the worst album that she's done. And one that, to be completely honest, the next time I take a bunch of albums to the record store, I'll probably sell this one because there's nothing else. There's not a whole lot on this album. It kind of pulls me back and makes me want to listen to it. There are some good tracks on here, but there's stuff that I could probably just stream instead of just owning the whole album. But, this is one that every time I see pop up on Facebook, I know there's always going to be a bunch of comments about it, about how many copies are laying everywhere and how it kind of bogged down the pressing plants and all that stuff. But, like I said, it's one that I have in my collection, but I probably won't have for very long. The next artist might be one of the most mocked musicians of the last 20 or 25 years. And that is Justin Bieber. I know Justin has done a lot of stupid things. He's said a lot of stupid things over the years, especially when he was younger. I can say that if I had his kind of money when I was 15, 16 years old, I probably would have, and there was a bunch of cameras around me, I probably would have said and done a lot of stupid things also. But as far as the music goes, I think really since Purpose, which was 2015, I don't remember what year Purpose came out, but ever since Purpose was released, I think his music is very different than what he did earlier in his career. It's still pop music, it's still R&B music. I think he's branched out, especially on the last 2 albums, and done a little more R&B, gotten away from some of the more simpler pop songs he's done throughout his career. But he's done, he's got a little more elements of rock and some electro pop and things like that on his last couple of albums. But, it's somebody that I think if you go back through and listen to his music, there's a lot of deeper meaning to his songs that I think a lot of people don't really understand is really there. And, he's a musician that just doesn't get the credit I think he really deserves. The next album is something that might be a little bit of a head scratcher to people out there watching this video. But that is OK Computer by Radiohead. I have talked so much crap about this album over the last few years. I think it is a very overrated album. I think Radiohead in general is a pretty overrated band. But there's still some really good stuff on OK Computer. I think the albums the Benz and Pablo Honey, the albums that came out before OK Computer, I think are better albums than this one. I know it's a very unpopular opinion, but if you watch this video, if you watch the channel for a while, and you've heard me talk about Radiohead. Like I said, you might be a little surprised that I've got this one in my collection. So I know I said previously that Justin Bieber is one of the most mocked musicians of the last 20 or 25 years. There's a couple other big ones out there. I think Nickelback is probably the biggest one out there, which I don't have any Nickelback in my collection, even though I do like a couple of Nickelback tracks. I do have some music from another band that I think a lot of people out there probably could lump together with Nickelback as some of the worst bands ever, but that is Creed. I love the first two Creed albums. My Own Prison came out in 1997, which I think was around the time, I think by the time Human Clay came out in 1999 was when I first started listening to the band a little bit more, outside of the couple of hits that they had. But, there's some really good music on here. I think this is where, alternative was in a different place by the time the late 90s rolled around. Music was so diverse, especially rock music. And I know a lot of people look at, the first few Creed albums kind of along the same lines as Nickelback, as kind of that homogenization of rock music. But I still love going back through and listening to this stuff. I think Weathered, which was their third album, came out in 2001, which is where the band really lost me. I didn't like some of the directions they went musically on that album, but there's so many great tracks, even outside of those hits on their first two albums. The next album might not be a huge surprise to you if you're a member of the Vinyl Den Facebook group. I do listen to this one pretty regularly. I do post it quite a bit, and that is the Definitive Collection by Lionel Richie. This is my Sunday morning album. So I generally work every other weekend. So when I have a Sunday off, this is my Sunday morning album. I come in my office, put this one on, and I listen to so many of these great tracks growing up in the 80s, and just putting this on just kind of takes me right back to that time. And then the last one on my list is probably my biggest guilty pleasure artist, one that I have no clue why I love her music the way I do, but that is Katy Perry. So her debut album, her first album, which was a self-titled album, which is a Christian rock album that was released under the name Katie Hudson, which was her birth name, was very different than what came out after this. If you listen to that and then listen to everything else from her career, the first album is a complete shock. But One of the Boys, Teenage Dream, and Prism, I think are three of the best pop albums of the 2000s and 2010s. And like I said, I don't know why. It was funny thing was, I didn't really listen to a lot of this stuff when it came out. It's really been over the last probably 6 or 7 years I've gotten more into these albums. So this box set came out last year, which has all three of those albums in there. Of course, I had to grab a copy of it. There's also some additional material in this box set also. But three great albums. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Love to know what some of your biggest surprising albums are in your collection, or artists that you've got in your record collection. But like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.